Horlicks Network 18, Mission Poshan, Bhavishya Roshan.
Mr. M. Damodaran is former chairman, Securities and Exchange Board of India, and he's joining us right now on the phone line with his thoughts. Mr. Damodaran, thanks very much. You know, the common refrain from investors at least is, why are auditors resigning? Is there no other way to deal with the situation? If you're not satisfied with the data, information provided with you, do you have to resign? Doesn't law provide you with an option of qualifying your opinion? And if you must resign, why not provide reasons in detail?
So themselves perceive that management as their clients, did not look at the shareholders or other stakeholders as their clients. Now, all of that has changed. Regulations have got tighter, investors have got more demanding, more questions are being raised.
And why is that happening?
Coming into this.
Sorry, I think we've got you in a bit of a patchy line, Mr. Damodaran. Why is this happening now, according to you?
Why is it happening? Simply because auditors know that if they are certifying accounts that don't stand up to scrutiny, if there are obvious gaps in the accounts that they have certified, be as guilty as those that prepared and presented the accounts. So that sense of responsibility has come. Interestingly, it has come after a year when auditor rotation has taken place. So we should look at how many of these are first-time auditors who tried to get new business and having gotten discovered that they were auditors to the wrong company and then are trying to go out. We should look at those that were very comfortable till recently, and now SEBI has mandated that auditors should give detailed reasons for why they are quitting companies, and it should also be disclosed by the listed entities to the stock exchanges within 24 hours of receipt of the reasons of the auditor. So now the reasons are going to indicate why an auditor is leaving. You're right, an auditor can qualify, an auditor can give that, and to my mind, entirely unacceptable halfway house which falls short of qualification. You call it matter of emphasis. To my mind, a matter of emphasis and a qualification is a distinction without a difference. All of these investors should look at carefully, read carefully, and then see whether what you see and what you get to read tells you the whole truth. Remember also that auditors hedge all their statements with, this comes from management, this is the responsibility of management, we've only looked at a small portion, this represents judgment, and whatever they write in the first 6 paragraphs of the report. All of that should really prompt the question, are you getting enough comfort from what the auditors are saying? And my last point on this is that if auditors don't tell you things as clearly as they ought to be, they are failing in the role as conscience keepers, as the custodians of the interest of the stakeholders.
Okay, so Mr. Damodaran, before we get to my next question, just a quick one-word answer then. Do you think that the auditors should have resigned in the cases that we've seen in the past 1 to 2 weeks?
I don't know what the specifics are. I know that auditors have left companies. You can certainly qualify. You can insist on a meeting with the independent directors. These are listed entities, and all good companies have meetings where the audit committee, comprising largely independent directors, meets with the auditors in the absence of management. And the first question that gets asked in such meetings is, are you people getting enough information? Is there any resistance? Is there any reluctance? Are you getting information in time? Is there any non-cooperation? Do you want to bring it to our notice? Now, if that had happened in these companies, I'm sure you would have seen some corrections emerging.
Okay. Mr. Damodaran, the other big issue that we are dealing with is what's happening with ICICI Bank. There is a second letter which has come through from a whistleblower. And at this point, Chanda Kochar is on an annual leave. Do you think that...
In the absence of management, and the first question that gets asked in such meetings is, are you people getting enough information? Is there any resistance? Is there any reluctance? Are you getting information in time? Is there any non-cooperation? Do you want to bring it to our notice? Now, if that had happened in these companies, I'm sure you would have seen some corrections emerging.
Okay. Mr. Damodaran, the other big issue that we are dealing with is what's happening with ICICI Bank. There is a second letter which has come through from a whistleblower. And at this point, Chanda Kochar is on an annual leave. Do you think that the board should take probably a little more of a firmer stance right now with her?
Well, I have expressed this publicly. I am a little disappointed with the way the board conducted itself for the last 1 month or so. Firstly, rushing to judgment and saying we are behind the CEO. The relationship between a CEO and the board is not one of unconditional support, but of board challenging management to see whether the company is run properly. That is number one. Two, even at that stage, to my mind, there was a requirement for getting an external investigation done, if for no other reason than to give a sense of comfort to the various stakeholders that we are looking into matters. That's a responsibility to the board. And now I am finding more and more curious things. The government says we will not interfere. Well, nobody's asking you to interfere. In fact, nobody wants you to interfere. But if you have a director on the board, and no matter where the director comes from, every director, in terms of the Companies Act, has a responsibility to the company and all its stakeholders. So if you're a director on the board, whether the government sent you there or somebody else sent you there, you're a director and you must exercise the duties that are expected of you and live up to the responsibilities. LIC has a large shareholding. Have they asked any questions? I would be curious to know whether they've asked any questions of the board. So that is really what is making me more disappointed than I ought to be.
Mr. Damodaran, just one last point, sir. In all of this, what do you think SEBI's role should be? Because when stock prices fall, investors panic, and they say, well, what is the regulator doing? Is it sleeping on the job? Shouldn't it take firmer action? Well, we hear that they're investigating. They've sent a question to this company, that company, but I mean, do we need to see more in terms of action from SEBI?
Well, I think SEBI must be taking action. I've maintained this, that regulation doesn't take place in the open, in the marketplace. Regulators have a system which throws up alerts when there are unusual movements in stock prices. They pick up that, they issue notices to the companies. You have to follow a due process. The company's response comes in, it gets evaluated, and then if there are any issues calling for investigation and thereafter enforcement, SEBI will look into that, because remember, these are all matters that get taken up in appeal, so SEBI has to have a robust process. Some of it will certainly not act as soon as we want it to act. But to say that they're not doing anything, are they sleeping on the job? I can tell you they're not sleeping on the job. There are a bunch of people that are doing their job there, and I think we should give them credit for that. It's easy to say, are they sleeping on the job? What were shareholders doing? What were institutional investors doing while all of this was happening? Did they ask the right questions at the right time? I'd like to know that.
All right. I mean, I think what you're saying is, as prices fall, maybe sometimes there is, a bit of misdirected anger as well, and we've seen that before over the last, previous such episodes as well. Mr. Damodaran, thank you very much for your time, sir. It's really a pleasure listening to your thoughts, and thanks again for joining us here on CNBC TV18.